You can really dial in the yin and the yang, the hard and the soft together. Then you're going to get a full experience of mind, body, life, relationships. It's a mixture of both hard and soft, not just hard, 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 like in the material world, in the Western world. Go, go, go. You know, cortisol, fear, um, adrenaline, right? You never have a chance to fully digest your experiences and appreciate and be thankful for what you've been through.
You're listening to Give Yourself Some Leeway, helping high achievers beat burnout and build a high performance lifestyle, one step at a time. Raj, welcome to Give Yourself Some Leeway.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Eugene. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
We were organizing this like last year, and I was just there like, I'm actually really looking forward to this conversation because what you have with Keep Fit Kingdom, it was so to the point. What your vision was, so very clear, and the breathing method that we're going to be talking about in this episode, it was just like very to the point, no jargon, no fillers. It was just like, what can I do right now to get into a flow state, into that state of calm? So where did Keep Fit Kingdom start? Where did it all start for you? And what's your dream for Keep Fit Kingdom in 2025? A very loaded question, I know.
Yeah, I have to break that down a bit. No, that's a great question. That's a great question. I think for me, a bit of a genesis, bit of a backstory, I think would be helpful. So I've always been into health and fitness, but even beyond that, take you back to when I was 3 years old. My mother took me to nursery for the first time in London, and the first when we went to the library, I remember this very vividly, like it was yesterday. And the first two books I pulled off the shelf was one about dinosaurs and one about planets, right? And for whatever reason, I was attracted and drawn to these things and not anything else, not Thomas the Tank Engine or, those other school kid books. But what I realized is that my obsession was with evolution. That's why the dinosaurs, that's why trying to figure out, okay, how did we get to become a human and what's after that in terms of the evolutionary scale. And the planetary thing was very interesting because there was this big, a long abiding conversation. Like, why are there planets out there? What are they doing? If they didn't need to be there, why are they there? Like, what are they doing? What is Mars doing? There's no humans on there, but what's it doing there? Right? Jupiter, Saturn, Venus, like, we don't know. Right? So it's became a long kind of abiding adventure for me to understand these things. So that's where the interest in the human body came from, and understanding the different systems in the body and why is everyone having the body is the same template of a body. Have blood, you have lungs, you have a heart, you have a brain, but what causes the differences between people? So I got into my own fitness journey, bodybuilding, weightlifting, yoga, calisthenics, all that kind of stuff that people do. But I didn't understand that the alpha male type of approach, which I was very much of, was not the best, right? Because when you're competing with other guys in the gym, seeing who could the biggest bench press, the biggest, shoulder press and the squats and everything, I was good, but I was battering my body at the same time. And I never knew, because the talking about yoga and flexibility, it wasn't such a big thing back then. But then when I started getting all these pains and joint issues, and I think I'm too young for this. Why am I in pain? Like, I should be enjoying my life and my training, isn't it? So then began an exploration into the softer aspects of recovery, healing, energy, flow, breath. So Keep Fit Kingdom was born out of wanting to share these discoveries along our journeys, and we've got 12 journalists now, and they're all dialed into a specific area of fitness, whether it's yoga, whether it's vegan cooking, whether it's gymnastics, martial arts, all that kind of thing. So there's a bit of a backstory for you.
One aspect I want to touch on there, when you said about I think it's the ego lifting of the bodybuilding scene. So a lot of my friends went into personal training, and that was all they post about, and that was all they did videos. And every day they would stay about 6 hours in the gym, and all they were doing were like comparing who could lift the most. And now they're in their 30s, and they all have back problems, hip replacements, bad knees, and like I since about 5 years ago, my regular routine was I go to the gym maybe 2 or 3 days a week, but I stay consistent at 2 or 3 days a week and always a day in between. So I don't want to spend all my time in the gym because I've got other things to be doing. But I know I need to keep my energy levels and my health, so I want to stay consistent. So I found out 2 to 3 days worked for me, and they were like, "Oh, you're not a gym bro. You're supposed to be in the gym for 2 hours every day if you want to be in the scene or in the cup." And that just that mentality. And I look at them now, and for being in the health and fitness industry, they have destroyed their bodies from this ego lifting through their 20s, which is very ironic because they work in the health and fitness industry now. Um, but it was just that matter of trying to find that balance. Instead of lifting for ego, it's like, okay, why am I lifting, and why do I look for external validation in trying to top someone else's lifts?
Yeah.
And even for myself, when I took a step back, I used to do running a lot, and I realized that I was running for the runner's high. I just wanted those endorphins. And by taking a step back and realizing I was literally running away from my emotions, that I was chasing that runner's high because I didn't want to process the negative emotions or my responsibilities. And I found that if I just go for a walk, a 1 hour walk, maybe throw on a podcast, or maybe just spend some time with my thoughts, as unnerving as that might be for some people to spend 5 minutes alone with their own thoughts. And I found I was able to process things. I was able to go into my default mode and process things a lot better. And I come back from the walk a lot calmer. And I still have that high to be like, okay, I have the accomplishment of getting out and having fresh air and being in nature. And it wasn't as exhausting. It didn't take me as long to recover as it would if I went for a 5 kilometer run. So it was about trying to find that balance. It's when a self-care activity, such as going to the gym or going for a run, is no longer serving you. It's no longer self-care. It's you're performing that activity as it's in a way it's a form of self-sabotage because you're running away from yourself, chasing that endorphin, that runner's high, but you're not actually serving your body in the long term. You're damaging your body with an activity that would otherwise be seen as self-care.
Exactly. Very well said. Very well said. Couldn't agree with you more. Yeah. I think that because in society, it's just one of those things in society, the way the system is geared is towards being go, go, go. If you're not moving all the time, then you don't have validation. You're not worth anything in society. Because after all, we're a materialistic society. So people don't think about the bigger questions. What happens when I die? Like, what am I doing all this for? People don't have that programming and the equipment mentally and the tools to be able to navigate that conversation. So as a result, that part of the brain or that part of the mind is shut off effectively for probably 95% of people. So that's why they find it difficult to engage those bigger questions. But actually, the truth is that the school system, the education system have a lot they could actually do to help people fulfill their potential by asking the right questions from the right age, from an early age. In India, they've got the Gurukul system, believe it or not. The Gurukul, interestingly enough, the word school that we use comes from the Sanskrit Gurukul. So kul means school, but they have guru school. They call it guru school over there. But here we have school without a guru. So we don't know where we've come from. We don't know why we're here. We don't know where we're going. We're not equipped with the character, the perseverance, the stamina, the consistency, the mindset to navigate the real world. Just not trained for that. Why? Because, as you might have heard, we've got the Rockefeller model. of consumerism. That's what the school system is based on. So you're not going to get very far with that. As you see, people die, they're in the grave, and they don't even know anything about themselves. What is a human being? What powers do I have? What could I do to really fulfill my potential? How could I make other humans' lives better, including my own family, my own kids, the humanity as a whole? What can I really do? You don't even have a chance to explore that, you know? And I think that's a real shame. It's a real waste of great energy and talent there.
And it feels like something that when you bring up the Rockefeller system, you're like, oh, that's something from 30 or 40 years ago. Oh, we're modern times now. But even as recent as in my last job, I would bring up a question like, oh, I talk about stress and overwhelm and burnout. Burnout was a big taboo topic, and they were like, "Oh, we don't talk about that here. Yeah, that's not a topic for work. You can talk about it in your spare time, but don't talk about it on social media either. That's a bad image for you to talk about these things." I'm like, well, if we don't talk about them, it's not like they don't exist. It's like saying, oh, if we don't talk about obesity, obesity doesn't exist. Oh, don't mention obesity because that means we'll have to address it, and people might see it as a problem. Or don't talk about lung cancer, or don't talk about all these things. It's like as if we don't talk about them, then they don't exist. We don't have to acknowledge them. But like especially in the workplace, when I talk about burnout or stress, and they'd say, "Oh, don't talk about stress around here because if they think people are stressed, then." That'll be a bad image. And I'm like, well, people don't get stressed about something unless they care about it. It's all that anxiety and worry comes from a place of caring about something. So if you don't want people to talk about being stressed in their work, then you don't want to talk about people caring about the work that they do. And that was just, let's say, one element of it, is that there's so much that we don't know about ourselves because people choose not to talk about it because it's raw, it's uncomfortable. Because we don't talk about it, it's uncomfortable because the reps have not been put into it. We're not comfortable having those conversations with others or with ourselves. So I think that's a big move for Western society, is to have those deeper conversations beyond talking about the weather. It's very common in the UK and Ireland is just to talk about the weather. We can talk about the weather all day.
Exactly. Can you do
Mostly the
anything about
rain.
the
You
weather?
could about 20 different ways to describe a rainy day.
It doesn't move the needle anywhere, does it, to talk about
No.
the weather? You know. But what does move the needle um, is to talk about what's really in your heart. What's your dream? What do you really care about? That those are the real questions, right? And if a lot of people, because they don't have the tools, the mental tools to navigate that kind of conversation, they'd rather just drink in the pub or just shut the curtains on those possibilities. So I think a lot has to do with the school system. I'll tell you a little story and we can move on to your next great epic questions. But I was quite obnoxious as a teenager, with all respect, being humble about it. Um, when I was 18, I went to India for the first time. Right, London born and bred. I am. I've seen a lot of things. I've been involved in business. I've been involved with um, all kind of things. A few street fights here and there. Not many. Not too crazy. But um, I thought I knew a lot being in London. Oh, we're in the first world country. Everything's cool. But I went to India and I had my backside handed to me because it was such a shock to the system. I'm seeing, on the one hand, I'm seeing beggars on the street. It's very shocking. And I'm talking about beggars with nothing, and also got physical deformities. I'd never seen this before, right? And they got a begging bowl, like a dented begging bowl. Yet, the strange thing was, some of them would be the happiest people you'd ever seen in your life, and they have nothing. And I'm thinking, what is going on? I've got everything. I'm not happy. These guys have nothing, yet they've got I've got a smile on their face all day, every day when I see them. The same people with a begging bowl, just asking me for a bowl of rice or a chapati or something. I'm thinking, what am I doing wrong? Like, what is wrong with me? I'm starting to question myself now. Anyway, when I spent time in India, I came across some yogis and some masters, some real masters. And then I had to rethink my whole approach to everything because I realized I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about this world. I didn't know about the senses. How do they work? How does the brain work? How does the breath work? How does the mind work? I knew nothing. Be honest, in the school books, what do they teach you about that?
In school books?
Yeah.
No, like in school books, you get a bit of Shakespeare, you get a bit of Christopher Columbus, and that's as far as it goes. Pythagoras, and that's it.
Yeah. But also, I mean, I was having this conversation with a friend who's also a fitness fanatic. He said, well, the government have to pass the school books in terms of what they allow the content to be. It's edited for a reason. These kids are fed pre-edited material because there's certain things they don't want you to know. You can know this bit, but not this bit. And I'm thinking, but the kids are getting hypnotized from this age. So the mental map they go into the world with is completely at variance with what they've been fed in school. And it's like, okay, well, now this is the real world. Get on with it. You got to face the real world, and you're going to get beaten up because you don't know anything. So I think traveling around the world is great. If you travel, you look at people, how they live, you talk to them, you interact with them, you think, what's different about their culture and my culture? Why do they believe that and I believe this? Right? And you start to do a bit more of a deep dive, and you realize that, am I aligned with reality as it is, or are they more aligned with reality as it is? Which one serves me better? Right? So I think being humbled like that at a young age was so beneficial. I had to scrap everything I thought I knew and start again. And then realize that, oh, so I was given the wrong knowledge. And that would keep compounding, because the more you keep thinking something, the more it compounds and the stronger that thought gets. And then you start to think it's real. When in fact, it's not real. So everyone needs to course correct and find the paradigm that works best for them.
What you just mentioned there about reality and everything being real, there's a philosophy group I go to, and nearly every single conversation comes back to when someone says, oh, but this is true, or this is real. And it always gets this one blocker, and I love it. Every time it comes up, I'm like, okay, this is when we reset, guys. This is when we just go back, we stop this argument. And they always say reality is a concept of one's mind. So everyone has their own perspective of what reality is. Reality is different for everyone. So reality is neither right nor wrong. It's completely a figment of your own judgment. So anytime someone goes, but this is real, and it's thinking, like, everyone's like, but what is real? And they're like, oh, but this is true. And they're like, but what is truth? And it just comes back to when people say, oh, what you believe is wrong. And I'm like, well, you believe what you believe based on what you've learned or what you've been taught. And that comes back to another aspect, which I love, when people have all these self-limiting beliefs. And it's that I think it's when you reach the age of 25 that your brain chemistry stabilizes. And we've been influenced by a lot in our younger years. So usually by your mid 20s to early 30s, I always get people to question everything they've been taught. And it's like, who taught you this? Or why do you believe this? And if people say, oh, I believe it because this is what I've always believed, I'm like, then you question it. Question everything you've ever been taught. You go out and you find other information in the world and see, do you still believe that? Are you still open to what other people believe? Rather than accepting, this is the truth, this is what I've been told for the last 20 years, and anyone who goes against it is wrong. It's like, no, you need to be open to it. And if that value is something that still serves you, you can hold on to it, but know
Mm.
that it might not serve someone else. So they're not going, don't question whether they are right or wrong. So it's about having that open mind and not having silly debates and arguments over who is right and wrong in certain things. Like so many controversial topics that I could bring up on silly things, but someone could say like red is blue and blue is red, and they'll fight over which color is which. And it's like, well, you don't know how the other person sees colors or perceives colors. They might have been told when they were young that red is blue and blue is red.
Mm. Mm. They might be colorblind.
They could be colorblind.
Yeah, that's it. So interesting, so interesting. I think one of the best paradigms that I've used in coaching, because I'm also a relationships coach for women for the last 15 years, is the paradigm of the 5 life areas. So you're probably familiar with this if you've read Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He talks about the main areas of life. So there's health, there's wealth, there's relationships, mind, and spirit. So he says that every problem that anyone will have will always fall in one or more of these areas. So as long as you're aware of this kind of thought system for yourself, you can always develop yourself, whether it's daily or weekly or monthly, in any or all of these areas. And the amazing thing is, as we study things, like metaphysics from the likes of Joe Dispenza or Bruce Lipton or Greg Braden. I think they call them the 3 musketeers of metaphysics in the modern world. They would say, you've got to question your position in this matrix. You've got to understand that there are forces of the mind that have never been taught to you in school. If you leverage those, you can solve most problems. But because the mind is intangible, yet it is the majority of you in terms of you have a mind, you have a body, you have senses, and the world is just there, right? Do with it as you will. But it's your mind, the way you use your mind, that will determine your experience, the quality of your experience, and your outcomes and your results. So they say that, if you use the mind, you can solve most of your own problems and that of others as well. But because the mind is intangible and it's invisible, you can't actually externalize it because it's within yourself, right? And because it's within yourself, it cannot be corrupted in terms of, can it be dusted? Well, no, there's no dust in it. Yet it controls everything else that is visible that would need dusting. So this kind of conversation gets confusing for people because they've not been taught that you should utilize your intangible forces, which actually control the tangible forces. So, those guys, Bruce Lipton, Greg Braden, and Joe Dispenza, they try to help people be more inspired by these invisible forces.
And as you mentioned, those invisible forces, is this what you would use to, because you mentioned Joe Dispenza, it's all about rewiring and firing neurons. Is this what you would use to, let's say, change your mental or emotional state?
Absolutely. So the jump off point between navigating the invisible forces, which we all have to deal with. This is incredible, really. But I totally understand why people find it difficult, because you're dealing with things that you cannot see. You're dealing with concepts. The higher up you go in your evolution, you start to deal with concepts now and principles rather than physical things, because physical things, they become boring after a while because they're very limited. But us as human beings are essentially unlimited. So the jump off point becomes where you tap into your own brain hormones, for example, endorphins, like you mentioned, the runner's high, get the endorphins, but also serotonin and dopamine, which are feel good, happy hormones. Once you can consistently activate those and secrete the hormones into your bloodstream from there, you can start to let go of the lower physical elements and start to deal with the higher mental realms. when you do the breathing methods, like what we'll hopefully do in this interview, is activate the vagus nerve as well. So the vagus nerve is a very important part of the parasympathetic nervous system. So it helps you rest, digest, to heal, to sleep, and to recoup your energy and optimize your well-being. The vagus nerve is behind the throat, behind the face, and in the gut. And once you become familiar with those soft practices, breathing methods, releasing chemicals from the brain, Tai Chi, if you like, you're kind of relaxing, don't beat up your body kind of methods, yoga, Tai Chi, you can really dial in the yin and the yang, the hard and the soft together. Then you're going to get a full experience of mind, body, life, relationships. It's a mixture of both hard and soft, not just hard, like in the material world, in the Western world. Go, go, go. Cortisol, fear, adrenaline, right? You never have a chance to fully digest your experiences and appreciate and be thankful for what you've been through, So yeah, the jump off point is to release those hormones from the brain, and then you're able to navigate the invisible with intuition. This is such an undeveloped quality that we all have. In Sanskrit, it's called agama in Sanskrit. So intuition is something that you're able to develop when you get into flow state and stay in flow state as long as you can.
Yeah, what you touched on there about the parasympathetic. So for people who are not familiar, we have the sympathetic, which is, let's say, our fight or flight. And that's kind of what we run on when we're at work most of the time. It's always stress, go, go, go. You're in fight or flight or freeze, and you're in that constant state of adrenaline, high cortisol. Whereas if you can tap into your parasympathetic state, which is something that is almost unique to humans as mammals, having a prefrontal cortex, that we can go beyond this fight or flight and tap into, as you said, the vagus nerve, all these breathing, this state of calm, that we can get into a state of control.
That's right.
That's something that is unique to us. But again, if we're not aware of this, we cannot tap into that.
It's strange. We can observe nature. I'm sure yourself and curious people, thinking people, they look at nature and think, how do animals know when to rest and when to be active? They have both. Like a monkey, even a monkey who's restless and chattering about and causing mischief, they will also retreat and relax and chill and mess around with their little monkey friends in the trees and rest and relax and just hang around and just do nothing, and they don't feel guilty. So in the animal kingdom, they all have this, where they're on the go when they have to fulfill their duties, like they have to kill, like the lion has to kill food and bring it back to the cubs. But then they also have a lot of time when they're just chilling out by the lake and just relaxing and not doing anything. They don't feel guilty about it.
That's the same with our dog. Is like a 15-year-old Chihuahua, and he could sleep for 16 hours a day at this point, which is great. He doesn't have the yappy energy of a puppy anymore, but he could sleep for 16 hours. And they're like, oh, is he not bored that he's just in his bed all day? And I'm like, well, he's not worrying about taxes or paying bills or anything. He can sleep all day. No worries in the world.
Like babies, right? That's why they sleep so well.
Yeah, exactly. They don't have to worry about these kind of things. Right. All these worries are conditioned into us as well, that could be a debate for another day, but all the things that are conditioned into us, all these stresses and anxiety, but if we don't know the other side of that, how can we tap into controlling those things and controlling instead of being in a high cortisol, high stress, high alert state all the time? How can we take a step back and give ourselves a chance to recharge and recover?
Exactly. But this comes back to the system that you're born in. So if you're born in the UK, you're born in the USA, you are born into this social construct that conditions your mind, consciously or unconsciously, to get into that rut, into that fix, into that funk where you think it's normal because everyone else is reacting like that. So you tend to do the same. You still have your individual life, you have your individual blueprint, fingerprint, and you have your own mannerisms and characteristics, but still the energy system that you're stuck in is because you've not been taught a more balanced way how to consciously get that under control. That's why all these problems with inflammation in the body never have a chance to heal, because people are always in freeze, fight, flight most of their lives. So people need to definitely learn the opposite side, the parasympathetic side, for sure.
And that's exactly what you're going to share with us today.
Yeah, if you're open to it, absolutely. Yeah. Shall we do the practice?
Yeah, of course. I suppose give an explanation of, because we did this off air already. And when you first showed me this, the 3-3 breathing method, I remember we're just going through it. Next thing I was like, I'm already yawning, so I'm definitely relaxed. I could fall asleep right now. Um, but that's the importance of, like, or the power of it is that people who are constantly let's say shallow breathing or hyperventilating even because they're just in a high stress state, and they think this is how I stay alert, this is how I'm always aware and high performing, is because I'm always in this state. But it's not a relaxed state. And it's also the difference between enjoying life and enjoying being in high energy state, or being just on this adrenaline rush, high stress, high alert all the time, hyper vigilant about everything, and thinking that that's you working in a peak state. It's like, no, your body is literally in fight or flight. Your body is literally, all alarm bells, all sirens are going off. That's not working in high energy. That's not working in a state of control. You are like a headless chicken running around the yard. That's the state that you're in. That's not high performance. So
Correct.
what you have here with the 3-3 metaverse breathing method is a way of controlling your breathing, and that you can control your state so that you are back in control, and then you can work and perform with intention.
Absolutely, absolutely. So well said, so well described. And I think one good question we're using as a new barometer of questions when we coach: are you enjoying your life? Are you enjoying your life? Because if you're not enjoying your day because you're not able to rest and digest within the day, you're not enjoying that day. So if we ask you the question, are you enjoying yourself or not? Is your life fulfilling or not? It's a great question, because humans don't need forever to think about that. They just know instantly, yes, I'm enjoying my life. No, I'm not enjoying my life. So if you're not, why aren't you enjoying your life? Let's look at your day and see when you're in sympathetic mode and when you're in parasympathetic mode. And let's get a routine together that helps you visit the parasympathetic more often during the day. And then you'll start to appreciate and enjoy your life, because you're able to control your states and mood and energy so much better. Right? So that's how we should be.
That's a great question. And it reminds me, I remember I was job searching about 2 years ago. And one of the questions that I posed to every interviewer, who oftentimes would have been my potential future manager, and they would say, "Oh, any questions?" And I'd be like, "Yeah." I was like, "What excites you most about getting up for work in the morning? What do you enjoy most about working with your team?" And they literally just look at me and go, like, "What kind of question is that?" And 9 times out of 10, they just shrug their shoulders and say, "Oh, it's my 9 to 5." And and right there in the interview, I'm just there like, "You told me everything I need to know about this job." I'm like, if that's how you care about your job and how you care about your team, it's a no for me.
Wow, that's deep. I love that. I love that. But a lot of people would be like, you're asking questions outside the box. We're not comfortable with you. I'm not going to
Yeah.
hire
Oh,
you.
they were expecting to talk about salary or talk about work conditions or something. I'm like, no. I was like, do you enjoy working here? Do you enjoy spending time with your team? Because you're with them for 30% of your life if you're there for 40 years. But like, as soon as I threw that was a curveball for them. And they're like, no,
Wow.
no, we're the ones who are supposed to be throwing curveballs at you. But as soon as I'd say that, and next thing they'd say, oh, this is just my 9 to 5. I'm like, well, that's 8 hours out of your 24 hours a day. So yeah,
I, that's,
but that was a good question for me. For me, going into interviews and being like, do they enjoy their work here? If they don't, then okay, that's all I need to know.
wow. I love that. we should have more people asking those kinds of questions, because end of the day, you're a human, I'm a human. So what? Right? Let's get back to basics. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't faff around with too many hoops. Just, we're humans, right? You want to be happy, I want to be happy. How do we do that? Right? So yeah, wow, let's try the breathing method and see how we do. Do you remember how long you did it for last time?
We
Eugene?
did it for, I think it was 18 reps in 1 minute or 1 minute 30, I think.
Wow.
Was that right? It was about
Yeah,
that, Bath?
like on the post it says 18 times in 1 minute. Yeah.
Is it 18? Yeah.
Yeah, literally that. All right, so I'll walk you through it like last time. So what we do first is check the nostril flow. So if you can block the left nostril, breathe out once through the right, and then same right on the other side. And can you tell me what the flow is? Is it 50-50 or is it 8? Yeah.
Yeah, it's about 70-30. 70 on the right and 30 on the left.
Right.
Could be the
Okay.
cold weather as well, so
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
be the time of year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And on a scale of 1 to 10, Eugene, what do you feel now? 1 being don't feel great, 10 being feel amazing. Where would you?
I'm a solid 9 3/4 because when I'm on the podcast, I'm always just like pumped. And because we've
Really?
been like just so in flow so far, so a
Yeah.
solid
Yeah.
9 3/4 at the
Yeah.
moment. I love saying 9 3/4. It's the most nerdy thing about me, but I'm always a solid 9 3/4.
9.75. Awesome. All right. So for this practice, Eugene, as you know, we keep our eyes closed. So we become more aware of our internal self, mind, and energy, and our emotions as well. And just take a second just to get accustomed to that. And this method requires just 3 in breaths through the nose and then 3 out breaths through the mouth with a slight elongation on the third out breath. So it's like this. Okay, do you want to try that once?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think people need to just be a little bit aware that Zoom and sometimes the softwares, they cut out the kind of humming and sounds
Yeah,
because,
the noise cancellation cuts it out.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
unless you exaggerate it and you're like I, it's a bit more like with the ASMR where you is proper like right into the mic, just whispering into
yeah,
the mic.
yeah. The
Yeah,
noise
that's
cancellation.
exactly what it reminded me of last time that we did this. It was just very just like, well, this is very ASMR. You could definitely sell it as ASMR.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it just testament to the technology is so good that the noise cancellation works amazingly well. So just for the sake of the viewers, it's 3 sniffs in through the nose and then 3 ha's through the mouth. So it's like ha ha ha, like you're laughing, ha ha ha, but without the vocal cords. So it's like becomes like the ASMR kind of whisper, ha ha ha, from the back of the throat. All right. So we'll do this together, Eugene, for 1 minute. All right.
Okay.
So when you're ready, I'll do the countdown. 3, 2, 1, and go. Okay, stop there. And keep your eyes closed and just relax. And just feel what's happening within. Observe. Just relax. When you're ready, using keeping your eyes closed, tell me what you feel and what you notice.
So one thing I notice is there's always a sense of calm where it's like, because when I'm not shallow breathing, when I'm focused on the breath,
Mhm.
it kind of heightens awareness because I'm focusing on it kind of it's kind of like a sense of clarity because
Mm,
it's like just taking a step back and being more present, kind of being in the now and
mhm,
focusing both on the inhale and the exhale. It doesn't give space to think about anything else. It's like,
mhm.
okay, I have to remember that I'm on the podcast here.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. I was like, no, I have to bring myself back to the present moment in a way that I was like, I have to remember, have that situational awareness that
Mm,
I'm still on air here. But
mm,
it does take you into a sense of, I'm not worrying about the past. I'm not anxious about the future. It's
mm.
just I'm focusing on the breath. I'm in
Oh,
the here and the now.
yeah,
And then
exactly.
and then that, as well with that, I'm like stifling a yawn because it's
Mm,
like I'm just so relaxed. It's like, oh, okay, I could go to sleep if I wanted to now.
yeah.
So it's
It,
just one of those hacks. It's one of those hacks for sleeping. And that's one thing I like about these focused, intentional breathing exercises.
mm,
It's like a real sleep hack that I don't feel, take melatonin for sleep. It's like, no, it's like the bigger flex is that I can breathe anywhere as long as I'm not underwater. I can breathe anywhere. I can take that with me. It's very accessible. But
yeah.
having an intentional breathwork technique that can help me to wind down and get to sleep really fast, that's it's like a superpower.
Keep your eyes closed just for a moment because I want
Mm-hmm.
to explain a couple of things to you. And I think, the hundreds or thousands of people that we've walked them, through this, they realize that they've never gotten into this state ever, not this quickly anyway. So, um, have you noticed, Eugene, your heart rate slow down a little bit?
Yeah, the heart rate has it's faint, as in like not that my heart has stopped, but it's that it's not pounding in the chest. It's a faint,
Right.
calm, steady.
Exactly. Most people, because we coach people on this intensively, by the second or third minute, the heart rate becomes imperceptible. And on the contrary to people thinking, oh, there's something wrong. No, there's nothing wrong. This is how you should feel, actually. So when the more the heart beats, you'll often find that it's accompanied by strong emotions of fear and worry and upset. But when the heart rate is imperceptible and the heart activity is imperceptible, like now, if you're wearing a tracker or hooked up to some kind of machine, you'll see that your heart rhythms are very regular and very more on the health um, reinforcing side than not. So, did you notice the monkey mind chatter, the sort of mental activity? Have you noticed that sort of decrease a bit as well, the sort of monkey mind?
Exactly. That's what I was getting to, was that by focusing on the breath, I had no time to think about anything
Mm,
past or present. Not I'm
mm,
not worrying about bills. I'm not anxious about what's going to happen tomorrow.
yeah,
It was, I can only focus on breathing in and
yeah,
breathing out.
good.
And that was my focus completely for the 18 breaths.
Yeah,
So other than that, there was no mental chatter, no worries, no anxieties. It's just I'm in the here and now.
Did you feel a kind of growing sense of awareness beyond the body, like your consciousness, your mind kind of grew a bit larger? Did you notice anything like that?
So that was an interesting thing I was going to mention as well. So I had this strange feeling, kind of like behind the eyes, where it
Mm,
was like I feel my head kind of twitching to the side because
mm,
because I was like, did I just have too much coffee today? And it's just catching up with me right now.
mm,
At like 6 p.m. But it was just like it was an interesting sensation. I was there like I feel like I just had a very clear mind, just very intense focus, and I'm like, okay, I don't know how to describe this,
mm.
but it was just like I just want to get to work.
Mm.
It was just a state of mental clarity where I'm like, okay, like I didn't feel fuzzy or didn't feel like do you know when you stand up too quickly and you get dizzy?
Mm, mm,
It wasn't that dizzy. It was the exact opposite of that. It was
mm,
I'm relaxed. I could sleep if I wanted to. I
mm.
could wind down, but at the same
Yes,
time, I'm in a state of calm
yes.
where I can focus, I can think.
You can choose whatever you want to do.
Yes.
Yeah. So do you feel like you're in flow state?
Yes, that is the flow state for me. It's when I'm like I'm calm
Mm,
and I feel I'm in control.
that's it. Exactly. And compared to the other methods you may have tried, um, was this a bit quicker, or how does it compare with the other?
Yeah. So there's only one other method that it very similar,
Mm,
but rather than the 18,
mm,
it's the 10. It's 10, just one deep breath in, hold,
mhm.
and one deep breath out.
Uh-huh.
And but I find with the intentional the 1 2 3
Mhm,
1 2 3, the ha ha ha,
mhm,
that it's easier to stay intentional with the breath
mm.
because there's more of a rhythm to it rather
Right.
than the long exhale or the long inhale and the long exhale of the one breath.
Yeah.
The intentional three sniffs and
Yes.
three ha ha ha's,
Yeah.
it has a rhythm.
Yes.
Especially if you're musical in any way. It's just this rhythm which is easy to just get into the flow, get into a state with.
Yes, exactly. Well, that's a very good point. You know, the ocean waves. People like to go to the ocean, the beach, because some people have problems and they just want to kind of wash out from their consciousness the problems. The waves are very soothing because it's got a predictable ebb and flow, ebb and flow. No matter what happens, it will have ebb and flow, ebb and flow. And as you said, it's a predictable rhythm. Once you get into predictable rhythm, which you no longer have to think about, then it takes on a power of its own. It almost becomes subconscious, and the effort is minimal, right? So, um, on a scale of 1 to 10, how surprised are you at how quickly this worked, considering that you just did it for 60 seconds? One being not surprised, and 10 being very surprised. What would you say?
For me, I'm not very surprised because this is something that I have I have practiced for a while. This is something,
Yeah.
but since you've introduced, and I'll just disclose this with you as well because we didn't talk about this off air. But since we talked about this about a month ago, I've been practicing it regularly in the lead up to the podcast to be like, I just want to make sure that this isn't just some flimsy woo woo thing that Raj is trying to put on me, a bit of snake oil selling or something. But no, I was like, this is practical, and this is what I do is that I like to look for what's a simple way that is almost so simple that it feels stupid not to do.
Mm,
That there's such a low barrier of entry that why would I not do that?
mm.
So, do I have 60 seconds in my day to spare to make myself feel calm and in control? And will this method help? there's only one way to find out, and that's to try it repeatedly to get the reps in and see if it's reproducible. And that was something that I found. I was like, okay, I'm going to replace my previous breathing technique and replace it with the new 3-3 method. Now my partner hears me going every night, and this is like, it's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, trust me, Raj says this works.
Yeah.
But it's only by getting that rep in. But it was something that I question again, coming back to questioning everything. Of course, I questioned it, but I even knew from when we practiced this first between us, and I feel that when you practice with someone else, it's easier to get into that rhythm as well. There's kind of a resonance that comes with that. But by practicing it on your own as well and getting familiar with how your body reacts and your own self-awareness, that it surprised me how it was easier to stay intentional on the breath with this practice.
Yes. Yes. Your partner, they can ask you, what are you doing? But you could also ask them to try it for a minute as well and see what happens.
Yeah, it's like, stop questioning it and just join it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So you've seen how, because I've practiced yoga for 25 to 30 years, we do the physical postures, downward dog, upward dog, you get sun salutations, all those things. They're good. But the real meditation and the real transformation of a human being happens in the mind and the energy. Because there's only two things that exist in the universe. One is consciousness and the other is energy. So if I told you that a lot of issues that I've helped people solve that have not been touched by medical science, you'd be like, how is that even possible? And it comes back to the same thing. There's only two things that exist in the universe: consciousness and energy. Once you know how to use energy, you can make all kinds of changes happen. So I hope that, puts aside, all lots of skeptics out there, no doubt. But try it for yourself and understand that when you release endorphin, serotonin, dopamine, and activate the vagus nerve all at the same time, you've got a huge amount of leverage. You can get a big effect in a very short period, compressed period of time.
And well, the only difference between the skeptic and the open mind is that the skeptic is staying like strict with their beliefs and just saying everything else is wrong. Whereas if you approach it with an open mind, and as we touched on earlier, the consciousness and the energy are the intangibles that control the tangibles that we just spoke about earlier. And it's because people have not explored their consciousness and their energy in that way, or have an understanding of those intangibles, that it feels so foreign to them, that if it feels so out of they feel out of touch with that side of themselves. Does not mean that it's not there.
Correct.
It just means that they don't know how to tap into that side of themselves.
Correct. Exactly. And it's all about what you focus on in life. Do you focus on those things? What's your priorities? Is it important for you to understand yourself? As in the Greek aphorism, know thyself. Is that a priority for you or not? It's up to you. You got your own choice. So, but the more people know, the more we teach people that there are things you can do to dramatically transform and improve upon certain conditions or problems that you're facing, then energy is the way out. Energy is the way to solve it.
So the 3-3 Metaverse Breathing Method, how have you seen that impact people? Whether is it busy professionals? Is it where is it in sports? Where do you see it having the greatest impact for people?
That's such a great question. It's such a broad question. You're starting to ask questions that are inevitably have the potential to make a huge impact on humanity. Because as we said, consciousness and energy doesn't apply just to you or me, it applies to everyone, right? So if you go on the website, keepfitkingdom.com, go to the 3-3 products, there's a tab there. People can read all the testimonials. We've got testimonials from the NHS, from top flight martial artists who are like seventh Dan professionals in their particular combat sport. But you'd think, hang on, if you've done all these martial arts since you was a kid, how come you don't know about these breathing methods? Because they haven't specialized in that. The yogis are the ones who specialize in that. People like Wim Hof, other people who are specialized in that. So you've got athletes, you've got psychotherapists who have been in practice for 25, 30 years, who themselves suffer from anxiety. They do this method and like, I was never taught this in any of my psychotherapeutic lessons, teaching, coaching, nothing. So then you realize that, okay, this is something that can impact large populations of or large sections of humanity. So we're looking to popularize the method to help, collaborate with, intelligent people like yourselves who are willing to practice and measure and understand the influence and impact in their own lives and say, oh, well, I used to have 48 different methods. I don't need all of those. I have one which is more effective than most of those put together. We had a coach who's an Olympic swimming coach. She says, I have 52 methods in my toolbox. I give it to all my students. When she did this method with us, she's like, you know what? I said, what? When I asked them which methods did you use, and they say, I didn't use any. And she says, why? She says, there's too many. I don't know which one to pick. And then it kind of penny dropped and she realized, better that you take away all complexity, all of it out. Use one that will work reliably, consistently, every single time you do it. And they don't need to worry about 52 different tools. So we're looking to bring, more awareness to the breath, more appreciation for your own powers in your brain that you already have, and to unlock people's natural potential. That's where we want to go with this.
I love that. What you mentioned about the coach having 52 things, and straight away my eyes just started to roll, because I know so many people and they're like, I've got so many tools in my toolbox. There's so many things that we could do. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to do 52 things. The reason that I'm here is because I'm stressed and I've got no time, and I just want to fix this problem. So if you're going to throw 52 things at me, it's like, okay, you've given me all these different like screwdriver heads in the box, but just show me which one works or which one can do multiple things. And I always come back to, like, if I want someone to start somewhere, they don't know where to go or what to do, I always mention Gary Keller's The One Thing. And I always say, what's the one thing that if you do right now will make everything else easier or unnecessary? What's the one most effective thing you could be doing with your time? Because if you're going to throw 52 things at me, the decision fatigue alone from trying to decide which one I should focus on, or not trying to focus on 52 of them all at the same time, that's going to cause more problems for me. What's one thing I can do right now? And if I can take a breathwork technique that takes me 60 seconds to help me to calm down, feel in control, and then I can decide, okay, maybe I can look at the 52 things in the toolbox and pick one of them and try that next. Or I can say, no, this one works for me. This one will get me by. And if I keep it as a regular practice and get consistent with it, it will feel effortless with time. It will become second nature.
Correct. Exactly. And I think, being a yogi, being very, very interested, as I mentioned earlier, in evolution, human evolution, I had to understand that human beings can live for 40 days without food, 4 days without water, but only 4 minutes without breath. So why isn't the breath, if it's the most important fuel of the body, why isn't that discussed far more exponentially than the others, if it's that important? So you can see the mismatch of priorities have been on the wrong thing again in the materialistic world. They've gone for the complex, infinitely non-solvable ways of building a house from the roof down rather than from the foundation up. So that's where the problem lies, and it's a great discussion. So happy to keep it.
Yeah, Raj, I love everything you're doing, especially with keeping it simple for people. Keeping it simple with, okay, let's breathe in and breathe out and do it for a minute and keep it intentional, and you'll feel 1,000 times better.
Exactly.
And I think that's what people need to do, is realize that we have to cut out the jargon. We have to cut out all the, oh, you need to have 1,000 things done on your to-do list, and then you'll feel productive, and then you'll feel happy and successful and blah blah blah. It's like, no, we need to take a step back, take a breath, and live in the now. Enjoy living in the now.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I love with what you've been preaching here with Keep the Kingdom.
Yeah. I also want to say a couple of other things very quickly, where it becomes even more exciting. You did it for 1 minute, right? When you've been practicing by yourself, how many minutes did you do it for?
So usually, well, especially when I'm going to sleep, I do it until I stop counting. It's better than counting sheep to just count your
Yeah.
breaths. It's so much more effective and so much more practical than just counting sheep and trying to visualize different kinds of sheep. But I do it until I go to sleep, but I think I'd lose count somewhere between 20 or 30. And
Wow.
that's effective enough for me. Um, but yeah, so that will probably be only around the 60 to 90-second mark.
Exactly. That's exactly what our research has borne out time and time again. 30 to 90 seconds. Even people who struggle with insomnia fall asleep like a baby, and they will sleep for 6 hours. And then when they wake up, they're like, that's the deepest, most refreshing sleep I've ever had since I was a kid. Right. So the thing is, what I can also tell you to enhance the power of this, if you do it for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, you compound the effect because you're releasing more hormones from the brain. And if you're in business, high pressure business, we were coaching a lawyer from Dublin. She has high pressure meetings every day. When she does this method of 2 or 3 minutes, what's that? That's 120 to 180 seconds. It's nothing, right? And what happens is her whole mindset morphs into like bullet time from the Matrix. Everything's moving in slow motion. And what her partners do, they start nodding their head in agreement. When she suggests something, they're all going, yes, yes, yes. And she said, what's happening? I said, the reason is because you've removed all the static from within yourself by getting your emotions to flow in a positive state, to flow. And everything morphs according to what you start thinking. I know it sounds a bit, you know, technological, a bit futuristic, but that is actually what happens.
And just as you mentioned there, when you're doing it for 3 or 4 minutes, what it reminded me of is Andrew Huberman's non-sleep deep rest. So is this similar to the non-sleep deep rest that Andrew Huberman will be doing?
Well, I think um, the method, the count is simpler on this one, and it's softer, and it's far easier for people to remember. Because when we teach children, you know, 5-year-old, 6-year-olds, I have my partner who's teaching children as well. Can you count to three? Yeah, yeah, I can count to three. Are you sure? Yeah, then you can do this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's easier to kind of make it subconscious, if you know what I mean, as a rhythm. And you've got many songs that also talk about this. You know, one ABC 1, 2, 3, Jackson 5, easy as 1, 2, 3, ABC. You know, so I think that also adds to the fun of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so because that was the thing when Andrew Huberman had like he has a 5 minute and a 10 minute like non-sleep deep rest thing on Spotify,
Mm.
and I was like, okay, I'll listen to it, but sometimes I wouldn't be able to maintain the concentration for the 5 or 10 minutes, even with the um the walkthrough and
Mm.
audio. It's difficult to stay in that state. I was like, okay, maybe with practice it will get easier, but
Mm.
whereas when you get into the rhythm of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, it's easier to just stay in that flow.
Yeah.
Once you've practiced the rhythm, it's easier to keep that momentum and just keep it going. And whether
Right.
that's for 1 minute or 2 minutes or 5 minutes, it's it just kind of gets easier,
Yeah.
or it's, you just kind of get into the flow with it.
That's right.
Same as singing a song or anything. It's like the time goes by quicker because you're intentional and you're focused, but there's no let's say mental fatigue or anything or extra concentration.
Exactly. Exactly. And this is why we're trying to make it as accessible to as many people as possible. Even if you don't understand electricity, electricity works if you just switch the switch on, it'll work. That's the idea that we had initially, that we want it to lower the threshold, make it as easy as possible for every man, woman, and child on the planet to experience flow state and to experience what it is to have your emotions flow in a positive state where you feel peaceful. When you feel peaceful, you don't want to fight with anyone. And when they're peaceful, they don't want to fight with you either. So everyone remains in a state of peace and flow. So, yeah, that was a very, very good point you mentioned. It's not hard to learn, but the science of it releasing these hormones and endorphins is not, oh, let's make it more complicated and we'll feel better. No, make it simpler, feel really good, and maintain and compound that effect. The more you do
Yeah,
it.
that's exactly where you're like, is like, oh, how do we level up? How do we optimize this more? It's like you optimize it by compounding it, by doing it over time. That's all you need to do.
Correct. Exactly. Love that.